Hello and welcome to my little look at Runespell Overture, a game released by Mythic onto Steam in July 2011. Obviously this is nowhere near a new game, I'm not pretending it is, but it might be a bit overlooked. At least I had never heard of it. I got it as a part of a bundle, so when I started playing it I literally had no idea what to expect. And therefore I was quite pleasantly surprised when I found out that it's a type of card game. I am a big fan of card games myself. I like to try most of them. I was a bit bummed when I saw that this uses regular poker cards instead of having their own system. But it actually turns out that that might not be such a bad idea. I'll probably get back to that a bit. In this game you play as a changeling in like medieval English Norse kind of setting. There aren't really much animations. The map is like a board game kind of style where you go from node to node and vanquish your foes basically through card game battles. And the story is adequate for like the gameplay that you need to do, and the characters are actually quite interesting and fun. I think the dialogue is pretty witty. It's got a bit of a meta sense to it where it makes fun of itself in a way that I find quite enjoyable, but it's definitely good enough for framing the card game itself. The card game itself is actually pretty good. Like I said at first, when I saw that they used regular poker cards, I thought that would be a bit boring, but on the other hand I realized after having played the game a while that it allows anyone to jump in knowing roughly how the cards work. Everyone knows pretty much like how poker cards, their values and how they work and stuff, so you get into the game really quickly, even though there's a neat tutorial in the beginning that will teach you the basics. The idea of the game is really simple. You are supposed to make combos, regular poker combos really, where you can do straights, you can do flushes, you can do pairs and three of kind and so forth and so on. The values to these combos is also based on poker values, which means that a full house, for instance, is worth more than three of a kind, and so on. This is actually where you see one of the weaknesses of the game, at least if you ask me. I've played a lot of regular poker card based kind of games, not poker itself necessarily, but similar kind of games that uses the point system from poker as its basis, and personally I think that some of the combos are worth too much relation to how easy they are to get. Like for instance, getting 3 or 4 of a kind is relatively simple, especially in this kind of game where you have an infinite kind of card deck and you're not just limited to 52 cards. I personally think that's a lot simpler than to get a straight or a flush, for instance. Still, the straight and the flush are usually worth less than a full house, for instance, which I consider quite easy to get. And this is something that I think that regular poker card games, that's a flaw in those kind of games, and it's a small flaw in this kind of game as well, since it uses the same point system. However, it is a minor flaw. It's definitely not a big thing. It just means you will probably own in on getting the 3 of kind, 4 of a kind and the full house kind of bonuses, because they are so much easier to get than anything else. To this you can add bonus cards. These can be attack based or they can be defensive. They can add extra damage, or rather they can be an extra attack. As far as I know, you can't change the cards on the board in any way. Some have said that this is a flaw to the game, or rather that they would have seen that being possible. Personally, I don't think that's necessary. I do like the idea that you've got the board and your combos there, and then you've got the bonus cards and whatever they can do as kind of two separate systems, and that they need to complement each other rather than interfere with each other. You can get cards that give you extra turns and stuff, so in that sense you can change the board. The defensive cards are, and the attack cards are pretty straightforward. They will give you a set amount of extra damage. Well, I say set amount, it's an amount between two numbers normally. The idea, or the thing about the game is that you collect money by killing off enemies, and this money can be used to gain new bonus cards or more uses to your spells. There's a bit of a, well, how should I put it? The spells are pretty expensive, so it's not something you can throw off a lot. It's definitely like obvious that the main damage is supposed to come from your combos on the board. And I think this is a good thing as well. It's supposed to be a card game, and you're not supposed to just click these bonus cards. But the bonus cards are also further limited by the fact that you need rage points to be able to cast them at all, and you get these rage points also by dealing damage and receiving damage to some extent. So they've got a lot of limitations. You've got the limited amount of uses. They cost a lot of money to replenish, and you need rage to cast them. Not all of the cards have uses though. Some that are called allies, or some of the allies are unlimited, and they are instead limited by a cooldown, so that limits how often you can cast it. The game is challenging, I must say. Each fight has you on your toes, and if you're not good in like a tactical thinking, strategic thinking, then you will probably struggle. I haven't fought a single fight so far where I thought, except maybe for the tutorial fights, where I thought it was a piece of cake. I've always been pretty low on health for most of the fights. Some of the enemies will have more of the bonus cards to attack you with. Some of the bonus cards are really annoying, like the ones that like block damage, for instance. So I find them the worst to fight. But overall, I think the challenge of the game is really good. Some people have compared the game to Puzzle Quest, which I haven't played myself, but the people who have played both say that this is slightly better. It's got more to it, simply. Puzzle Quest is a bit of a simpler game, although the idea is pretty much the same. This one has better graphics. This one has really good music, by the way. I should really mention that. I like the music to it. So it's like a Puzzle Quest 2.0 kind of style. It's got a bit more of a strategic thing to it, maybe. You can in the fights, you can, for instance, steal cards from your foe, from your opponent, which gives another strategic element to it. It's not just about attack, but you also have to think about maybe blocking what kind of bonuses your opponent can allocate. So it gives a lot of thinking to do for each turn. It's, to me, it feels a lot like chess, where you have to think a lot of moves in advance. There's also obviously an element of luck in the way which cards you get drawn for you, but I'd say it's maybe 80-20, 70-30 skill versus luck. One thing that everyone seems to want nowadays is multiplayer, and as far as I can tell, this game doesn't have any. That would obviously be extra fun if you could play your friends in this game, because I really do enjoy it. Personally, it's not a big drawback that it lacks multiplayer, but it would definitely have been a bonus thing if it had it. So what do I think as a closing comment? I like this game a lot, actually. I love it for the fact that you can just jump in, do a couple of rounds of card game and then jump out. It's a big thing about what I like about card games overall. Like Magic the Gathering games are a lot like that as well. This game isn't locked to a certain kind of game or card game like Magic the Gathering, for instance, but could be enjoyed by anyone, even though you're not into those kind of card games. So if you like something that is easy to just play for a couple of minutes or get stuck in for a very long time, because it is very enticing, it's very easy to think just one more fight or just want to redo that fight, so then this game is really good for you. So all in all, I mean, I really do think it's worth its money. I will probably give you a run for the money if you are into card games. So yeah, I definitely think you should check it out if this is the kind of game for you. So thank you very much for watching this, and see you in my next checkout.